market, an achievement or a sad outcome of 2015, and our prospects of the sphere. We conduct this discussion this day. Today is a professional holiday of energy sphere workers, and I represent our speakers. Serhiy, Chekh, advisor to the Minister of Energy and Coal Industry of Ukraine. Ivan Vasilievich Plachkov, President of the Ukrainian Energy Assembly. Vasily Grigorievich Katko, Oleksandr Grigorievich Rogozin, Vice President of the Association of Energy of Ukraine. And there will be Centrenergo acting CEO Oleg Kozemko. So today we don't have ministers or deputy ministers. They are not interested. So those who are present here, who are energy experts, I congratulate you on this professional holiday and wish you health, peace, and good work and all the best. And maybe we will go back to our topic. So the Cabinet of Ministers, by its provision 29.6, stated that there's emergency situation in the energy market, and we are going to discuss the situation, the causes of the situation, and how long will it continue, and what are the threats for the participants of the market. And ask Mr. Plachkov to start our discussion and to make clear for all who is present here and who watch us online. So there's broadcast. So in order to understand what this emergency situation means, thank you for the greetings, and I want to congratulate all the colleagues, energy specialists, experts, and I wish them success in this difficult time, in this situation, and I wish them success in this emergency situation. And I would like to make some conclusions briefly to provide my understanding of the events that happened, and maybe as the continuation of these events, the introduction of emergency situation. Let's remind us about some events. First is the agreement on buying electricity from Russia. Now we don't have this, but we could to get not be involved in these contracts, and also this procurement of coal, and they were speaking that will it burn or won't it burn. And then they adopted a number of situational and non-professional decisions at the level of the government, and also the algorithm of cooperation among the minister, the premier. This cooperation was complete misunderstanding. It's very difficult to operate in such a situation. But despite negative events and moments, the energy sphere is a highly technological sphere, and experts are very professional. And if we analyze the events of yesterday, They started the operation of 750 line, and this is one of the biggest events. Rovinsk and Kievsk line, and Dnistrovsky accumulation station, and the third energy block was introduced, and also IMF credits for modernization of the main equipment, and Energoatom provided basic load about 65% of capacity, and when Centrenergo restored the energy blocks in Oglegorskaya station, and they participate in the capacity, and DonbasEnergo Slavyansk station was renovated. It also works, and DTEK provided by its capacities the abilities and capabilities, and in this difficult situation, energy experts and specialists, they introduced new capacities and provided stability, stable and reliable work in the system. And today we congratulate energy specialists, and this year a lot has been done, despite the situation that is now in the country. And as to the emergency situation, I don't understand why this emergency state was introduced this year and last year. What are the responsibilities, and whether this situation, this emergency situation, is needed or not. It doesn't change the incorrect algorithm of managing the sphere, because we don't have balance. The system is not balanced. There's no systemic approach in the amount of consumption, and the system of management is complicated among the companies, and there's light chaos, and it's easy for them to take situational decisions. That's why it's easy for them to introduce this emergency state. And they say, we work in the emergency situation. But the situation is really difficult. And now we have not enough coal. It's lower than it was that is needed. We have difficult situation with gas in gas reservoir, and we reduced extraction for about less than $1 billion than last year, and rent increased three times. And it was difficult even to support the level of extraction, and so on.
It seems to me that in order to take some kind of regulatory situation-based decisions, they introduced this kind of emergency status in the energy sector. I don't think that the energy experts were the initiators of this situation. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Plachkov. I would like to ask the Energy Association of Ukraine to comment on introduction of emergency status in Ukraine, to say more specifically what kind of additional authorities are given to the public or the state agencies for this situation. Thank you. First of all, allow me to congratulate all those present here, energy experts and the employees who work today at the different energy companies, and those energy experts who have retired already, and wish all those sound health, peace, happiness, and the inspiration and the success in all their endeavors. Unfortunately, we don't have here a discussion because there is nobody here to discuss with, but we have something to discuss. I would like to remind you and to come back to the expert analysis regarding the regulatory documents which are introduced by those emergency situations. The law on the functions of the energy market is Article 29, which makes provision for some emergency measures to be taken. But this article reads that actually this is provided for a new market. In particular, this proceeds from the fact that such measures the cabinet ministers has to introduce based on the results of market monitoring. The same law makes provision for the fact that this monitoring is associated with the new segments of the market which are not available yet, and new players in the market, subject to the markets which have not been created yet or set up yet. Again, this article was kind of used for in case of to prevent some kind of for the case of emergency situations for those circumstances which have already taken place. It says that in case of the lengthy violation of the conditions of work of the market, in case of emergency actually caused by some emergency situation in the country or some disruption of the energy supply. The law also makes provision for specific procedure to be introduced by the cabinet ministers with all the criteria of violations, etc., that those measures can be temporary and they are taken or introduced for months and they can be extended for another month. And those measures should have a minimum effect on the operation of the market and to prevent all those negative consequences associated with those measures. When they actually adopted the procedure by the cabinet ministers of introducing this situation, according to that procedure, against law, they provide for such criteria of violation of normal operation of the market, like damage to the installations, which could lead to the let's say restriction of consumption, the decrease of the generation over 3 days, and this payment for the work of the generators. This is not something which is provided by law. It must be some kind of emergency situation to introduce emergency measures. And again, the procedure should specifically mention in the list of those measures which are already provided or stipulated by the law. But there is such a new measure which is called taking other measures within the authorities of cabinet of ministers, energy, the coal industry, and the National Committee for Energy Resources. And even those decisions which are taken according to the regulatory procedure, according to the law, since this requires some emergency or the immediate actions, they take those decisions not based on the regulatory procedure. So how they use this tool, this instrument? In August last year, based on the proposition of Minister of Energy Coal, they introduced emergency actions to ensure the non-interrupted operation. So there were some already directions which run counter to the law, because the law provides for something which has to take place, but nothing happened. They just to prevent something which could happen, they took this or passed this decision. They do not refer to some of the criteria which are fixed by the procedure of the cabinet ministers, and they provide for the measures which should be introduced by the National Committee for Energy Resources, according to the law on green tariffs, to the transmission, change of algorithm of the market, etc., etc. No orders are contained in that resolutions, and we cannot understand how those measures are associated with the above-mentioned reason of this resolution. So, in order, again, if you're talking minimum effect on the operation of the market, this requirement is not met. And against the law in the existing procedure, they make provision for the measures not to be taken not only by the Minister of Energy and Coal and the National Committee, and they also include the energy market, and some of the measures they go beyond their authorities and powers. And after this resolution or this order, the emergency measures were applied according to resolution 1195 of 2014. There were some other orders, two other orders this year. So that was a kind of a direct intervention in the operation of the market. And hundreds of millions of hryvnia were taken from some of the players, given to others, etc. I would like to draw attention to the fact that the efficiency of those measures in their, let's say, expediency have never been analyzed. At least the public at large doesn't know anything about that. As for the legality, legitimacy of those measures, there was a ruling on the court. You know that the National Committee actually lost some of the court's cases, and then the committee had to rectify those errors or to etc. So again, this background, the appearance of the new resolution is not absolutely understood by myself. I don't know whether there is some direct grounds for the minister or for the government, or this is kind of impudent challenge provided by them to the society. At least they changed already the attitude that the law said that those measures have been introduced in order to remove the consequences of the electricity problem in the energy sector of Ukraine caused by the damage of some energy installations. And if we had the representative of this profile minister, I would like to ask them what kind of emergency situation we have in Ukraine, what has been actually disconnected, if we know that a lot of different things we have been disconnected in the ATO area, but they have some specific situation. They've been disconnected for 18 months now, and they take special measures to renovate or to restore those overhead lines. There were some cases of the disconnection in the ATO zone, but everybody pretend that everything is okay, you know. And I'm talking about the Crimea, the overhead lines going to the Crimea. And about 1 or 2 weeks ago, there was some kind of emergency disconnection caused by the storm. But again, the experts or they restore those lines. So what those measures have to do with those situations? And now speaking about the situation in our energy sector, in my opinion, indeed, there is no lengthy violation of the operation of the energy market there, and I agree with Mr. Plachkov. We do have some serious problems. We have lack of coal. We have some emergencies, let's say some emergencies or accidents, and also they stop the investments. And not all those problems are associated only with the objective reasons or factors. For example, the problem of settlement of payments, especially at the beginning of this year, we had some problems with the payments related to the ATO area, and according to the government, they took care of this problem. But we also have some problems with the payments on the territory controlled by the governments. Perhaps you know that leaders of some of the energy suppliers, they took the older schemes of payment regarding the derogation of, let's say, of their debts. They took away some of big sums in hryvnia from their debts. They did not come to the heat generation companies, etc., etc. Over the 11 months of this year, the indebtedness for the generation increased by almost 9.5 billion hryvnia, given that the advance payment of the energy market increased for more than 2 billion. So this is a critical amount of indebtedness, and we are talking about the situation of the debtors, you know. This cause, mildly speaking, some concern. So for many months now, the National Committee approaches the Cabinet Ministers SBU to the Property Fund of Ukraine in order to replace the management of those companies, but nothing is done. They opened some criminal proceedings, but we are far away from the court consideration, court proceedings, and nobody can be sure that this ruling will take in favor of the country. Situation has not changed, and there are quite a few big problems like that. There are many questions which we could put to the Minister of Energy and Coal. Speaking about the coal industry, we are losing the coal industry. When the increase of the industry production will take place, we won't have the necessary things to ensure that growth, because we don't have enough coal. The minister himself is going to determine the price for the coal further on. Yes or no? And we can take some steps in order to introduce some kind of market mechanism. And are we going to continue to combat oligarchs by killing the companies or enterprise or the whole sub-industries? Speaking about the new market model, we actually imitate the reforming. Over the last 18 months, nothing has been done on the new market. According to new draft law, it provides for structural elements. We were creating a new draft law for the last 6 months, which raises more questions than resolves any of the problems. Then we are going to submit that draft law to the Verkhovna Rada, and the same will happen as the draft law on the National Committee for Regulation of Energy, and expect that the problem will be resolved by itself, And some other measures which we are talking about in new draft law, they have been preserved. To some extent, they simplified, maybe in order to provide more possibilities to interfere in the operation of the market. And then the question arises, who is going to come to this market? I'm talking about serious investors. And so we have to combat not the consequences, but the causes of those consequences, and they try to achieve the results by all means in the legal field. First of all, it's desirable that the officials be guided by the well-known rule from the Roman times, royal medicine. Do not hurt the patient. Unfortunately, we have the opposite situation. Thank you, Oleksandr Grigoriev. Dear friends, I would like also to congratulate the energy specialists in the whole country on the Day of the Energy Worker. Coming back to our topic, Oleksandr Grigoriev spoke in detail about the emergency situation in the energy sector. I would like to, you're talking about the electricity, I would like to talk about our glance to the bright future. So, speaking about our bright future, it cannot appear from nowhere. We have to ensure that today we have to do something. If we do something correctly, we are going to achieve that bright future. If we do something improperly, then we do not have any prospects or hopes that our future is going to be bright. What have we done? If we're talking positive. Last year, 2015, this year actually. So for the year 2016 become better. I do not want you to have an opinion that only mistakes have been committed and nothing positive has been done in the energy sector. In fact, we do have some positive things which are going to ensure our bright future. First of all, yesterday they introduced a new overhead lines, high voltage line, which will allow the Rivne and Khmelnytsky NPP to increase by 1 megawatt to increase the capacities of the nuclear power plants. This is a positive factor which will have a positive effect on the situation in the energy sector for the next year, 2016. I don't think that the ordinary people know, but the experts know that National Committee this year introduced a new methodology of the reformation, the pilot project. I'm talking for 6 Obol Energy, regional energy administration. This is the only mechanism which can be interesting for the national monopolies, Obol Energy, to work better for the benefits of the consumers. Such a resolution has been approved, and in next year, 6 Centrenergo are going to base their activities on this resolution, and there will be some kind of result or outcome. I would like to remind you that for the last 4 or 5 years, Energoatom consistently worked in order to diversify the supplies of the nuclear fuel, not only from the Russian 12, but also from the American company Westinghouse, and a certain share which increases year in, year out. It decreases our dependence in nuclear fuel on Russia, and makes us stronger and more independent. And we have a successor. I'm talking about the reverse of the gas supply, which practically even today we have a situation we can talk almost on the equal basis with Russia. We understand that we have the normal situation with natural gas supply, and then we have we'll have enough warmth to supply to the apartments of our citizens. We continue that work. I'm talking about reconstruction of hydroelectric stations based on the loans issued to us by the World Bank. Also modernization of the hydroelectric power plants, when it's going to be completed, this will be equal to introduction of another hydroelectric station like the and again, we are talking about the continuation of the service life of the nuclear power units. What does it mean? We have not only to repair, we have to create practically a new power unit. And we continue that work in this year. Again, speaking about some positive things, this exhausts actually the list of positive things, which we have not done this year and over the last few years. The energy market. Oleksandr Grigoriev mentioned that in a few words. I would like to remind you that the new electric power market, we started to deal with that in 2002 when we adopted the concept of reforming the energy market, which we allegedly have been implementing since that year. In fact, we do not make any progress. In 2006. In 2015, we did not make a lot of progress in the implementation of this project. Then another problem. Over all the years of independence of Ukraine, they did not construct a new power unit, and not because we do not have to modernize the CHPPs or new power units. We do not have an economic mechanism which would ensure the construction of new power units or the thermal power plants or CHPPs, save for theoretically the public budget. Theoretically speaking, only budget can invest money. Nobody else, because they do not have the mechanism for returning those funds. We lost this 2015 in order for this mechanism to be established. And at last, the problem of being connected to the electric grids. Our country occupies 173rd place in the world regarding the connection. Something has been done 2 years ago, but what they did? We didn't have any legislation at all. They came up with some procedure which functions today. They took care of some of the problems, but despite the fact that the procedure was introduced, I already mentioned the rating of our country. You were talking about the 2016. We lost that year, and no progress was made this year. The issue of independence of our country on withdrawal of the spent nuclear fuel to Russia. we're talking about Russia, which is not good in itself, but again, we pay a lot of money to that country. If we could leave these spent fuels, spent nuclear fuel in our country, we would save a lot of money. We have a special storage built in Ukraine. We plan decentralized storage for nuclear fuel. I've heard those talks for 5 or 7 years now. Unfortunately, in this year, there was no progress, almost nothing, or very small. Now we can see a big emergency situation. In 2015, the government said that in 2016 will be the year of big privatization, including the electric power sector. Now let's see what kind of prospects we have for this kind of privatization. We have something to privatize, not much, not many. Some of the Energo still are public. Centrenergo is the state-run company. What is going to influence this process, whether it's going to be successful or not? First of all, general situation in the economy, stability of the financial system, and the tax situation and the lack of balance, which affects the mood of investors and their decision whether to invest money in this country or not. So general attitude, is not very good. Speaking about the financial system, speaking about the banks, you know that for the last few years, 1/3 of the banks have been removed from the market. They clean this financial system quite substantially, but we hope that next year this banking system will work better. The situation with the budget, we are sitting on our hands for 11 months and then try to do everything in a hasty manner. So the situation is not good. As for the tax legislation, again, this is another thing which is not going to attract the investors here. What's going on in the energy sector? Let's consider the general situation. I'm not against this a tool as emergency situation per se, so the government and the Ministry of Energy has such a tool. If anything, they have to have some levers to improve the situation. But we introduced those emergency situations. Nothing happened, as the previous speaker said, but they introduced this emergency situation, number one. Number two, I'm expert in this situation. I read this resolution of the Cabinet of Ministers. I could not understand why they introduced this situation. I started to think on this, from this angle, from another angle, but the society, the players in the market, potential investors, they have to clearly understand why the situation has been introduced, emergency situation I'm talking about, what specifically a tool out of a big number of the tools available are going to be used, and for what period of time. We have to remain confident that this big sledgehammer is not going to do any damage to us. Unfortunately, we have the experts here, but nobody could understand clearly why this emergency situation was introduced. When the minister or the government tries to resolve the available problems, they have to always think about it, about tomorrow, how this is going to affect the reputation of the country, how the big-time investors are going to think about us. This is another brick, but not to create a good investment climate, but we are going to remove another brick from the foundation of creating this investment climate. Actually, we lost this year. We have the regulator, we do not have the law on the National Commission of Regulation of Energy Sector, Communal Services. And again, we argue we lost 1 year, we do not have the specific law, which is very important for the investors to have the regulator, the actions of which are regulated by law, but we do not have that law. And again, about the electric power market, a lot has been said. We are just making no progress. Payments. The situation has aggravated a lot. And again, what kind of big-time investors going to come to this country if he understands that he is going to invest some money and how he can return the invested money back if there is nothing happening along those lines. And again, the situation with the payments has aggravated a lot, and there are no measures taken in order to improve the situation. We have to take the brainstorm. We have to seriously work in order to rectify the situation. I believe this year has been lost in this respect too. What I'd like to say, if we wish that in 2016, regarding 2017, we have to do everything possible next year and do a serious work to make progress. Then we could be confident that in 2017 we'll have the bright future, not this kind of oblique or let's say wig, which we can see that today. We have joined by the Deputy Commercial Director of DonbasEnergo, Vladimir Grigoriev. You are the only representative of the production enterprise, the activities of which can be affected by the emergency situation which has been introduced. I would like to ask you to comment on this situation and really, using the phrase regarding the medical rule, so that the first aid not to become the last aid. So what do you think about this emergency situation? This is a negative or positive thing? Good morning. First of all, I would like to congratulate on this specific day with the energy the workers. We wish you the stability and uninterrupted operation. I believe after the energy, nothing remains. In fact, if we surrender, then there's nothing else left. As regards the emergency situation, let's get back to the beginning of the year, current year. The emergency situations already have been introduced in the first quarter of 2014, which resulted for our company, for example. The result was about 700 million hryvnia of our money. I mean, were distributed to other companies. Maybe that was a necessary step to take. I'm not going to argue, but I would like to understand under this situation what was the result. You were talking about the reduction of emergency situation in those days, just to understand whether it helped the country to the energy sector. We do not understand that. If we're talking about our company, this the result was the delay, 3 months delay with the payment of the salary. We are blessed that we improved the situation. The failure to pay the taxes, etc., etc. They introduced the emergency situation now. Again, I agree with my colleagues. It's not clear why they did that, why they introduced this emergency situation. If we speak about the operation of the thermal generation companies, we have a lot of reserve capacities, and we are the closing energy. We're working with the again, a question arises whether we need this emergency situation or not. Again, I'm going to support my colleagues. If you're talking about carrying out or implementation of the reform. Just to give you an example, there was a reconstruction of the Slanska thermal power plant for several months now. We regulate about 500 megawatt on a daily basis. We turn on and turn off different capacities, try to help to regulate the capacity pool. And it took us a lot of efforts, this reconstruction. Again, speaking about the new draft law submitted to the cabinet ministers of Ukraine. The investment component, which has to be repaid until the year 2020-22, it hasn't been taken into consideration. We cannot understand what kind of signal we send to our investors given this situation. Again, I would like to say, well, I don't know, our opinion is like that. It is necessary to exert more efforts to create some stable things, to have the kind of forcing balance so that all the players in the market could understand where we are moving to, how we move, and what kind of conditions should be created. And going to support my colleagues, we have to pay more attention to the reform and switch over from the promises to our European partners to the real actions. I understand that many players in the markets are interested in this, and they carry out a lot of efforts to implement the reform in this country. Thank you. Serhiy Mikhailovich, you have the floor. Your opinion regarding the situation and prospects. Unfortunately, we have only 10 minutes to go, and then the journalists can ask their questions beyond those premises. Serhiy Mikhailovich, Mr. Chekh.
I would like to greet all energy experts and specialists with a professional holiday, and those who are in the studio, and also who work and who retired. And these days, energy specialists, they make some conclusions, and in this period, the winter started. We prepare for this season, and we have a situation where we can make some corrections in our forecasts, and the prospects are not so bad as to the generating capacities. And now we are speaking about emergency situation, and I want to attract your attention to two things. These are different notions: energy situation in the energy market of Ukraine and in the integrated system. And my colleague provided a comment that the emergency situation in the market should be the consequence or the tool to overcome the situation in the integrated system. The classic example was the overcoming of consequences of snowfall, and there was no, in Odessa, there was a right decision taken. And what is the difference? Because it was done on the reciprocal ground, and the public and the Commission, they provided some resources, and they restored Dmytro Grigoriev, Odessa Energo, and Ukrenergo for the facilities. And then they knew how to do this. And what is the difference in the situation? In the integrated system, these are the events of natural, technology, or social events that led to the disruption of the system, disconnection in the regions and in the integrated system. But these events, if they lead to these disruptions, in case they lead to this disruption, in this case, there are special responsibilities, and we don't have reasons, we don't have such threats of the emergency situation in the classic example. But there's not enough fuel in the storage facilities of the stations, and this is a threat. And to prevent emergency situation in the energy system, the decision was taken, this provision was taken. And whether this provision will be used by the regulator in its activity, and it's unknown, and the forecast balance is mainly absent. There's some right, and we should react on the situation with the lack of resources, and we should liberalize the system and to improve it. And this provision repeats the same provision of the last year, and this is the time is lost, and we should reach some results now. Why these reforms are needed? When we speak about the preparation of the law on the operation of the market, there were some ideas on the change of business relations in the sphere, but the events of the recent past led to the fact that the coal industry the industry can't provide working places, and is in a this field is in a difficult situation, and we should have understanding whether they will provide resources for Ukrainian miners or for South African miners. So the colleagues criticized the provision concerning the emergency situation should be introduced in accordance with the consequences, and we use it now for prevention. And market discrepancies, of course, they should be decided in the market, and there shouldn't be any hand control of this, hand management of this. And what about the prospects for 2016? We can assess the situation. We have enough information, but the main, we accustomed to planning, to set goals. The first should be the law on electric energy. Steps should be taken in accordance with the law on the functioning of the electricity market. A lot should be done, and we have the experience concerning provisions and on electricity networks, and the problem of standardization and the processes standards, and we should also study and understand the decisions that were during the Paris summit on ecology, the role of heat generation, and England stopped the work of the last mine, and 2 works in Germany, and so these are the leaders of the European Union. So we should, in the framework of reviewing the strategy or in operational planning, we should take it into account. And also we should improve the sphere of renewable energy and to focus our attention on the level of state. And thank you. Thank you, Serhiy Mikhailovich. And We don't have time now, and I thank all the participants of our discussion. And because the heads of the field were absent, but the participants expressed their opinion. So the journalist would be provided the possibility to answer their questions a little bit later, and the Center on Energy will make its conclusions in the end of the year, and with advice of many energy experts, and there will be first publications on our site, and there will be many views of experts on the consequences, conclusions, and prospects of the development of the energy sector. Thank you very much for participation.